What's going on, CDL fans? I asked you for your hottest takes on Twitter in regards to Call of Duty and competitive COD. And today, I'm going to be reacting to them for the first time. I actually haven't read any of these yet, so it's going to be interesting to see just what spicy takes you guys cooked up. Let's start it off with, from my guy Zepsy, Warzone players cannot compete in the CDL. Not Biffle, not Shifty, not Hisoka. No matter of time will allow them to. This one's definitely a very interesting take, right? Maybe amongst a lot of you guys watching this, it's not a hot take, because I'm sure most of you guys are CDL fans like myself too. On the side of CDL versus Warzone players. I'm sure we all err on the side of the CDL players. But for me personally, I actually disagree with this take. I do agree with the fact that, like, they can't just come into the league and immediately be dominant or be top players. I definitely think that's a bit far-fetched, but I think saying no amount of time would ever let them get there is a bit of a very hot take in my opinion. I really think players that have the mechanical skill to be really good in Warzone with the right amount of time and practice, or playing in challengers, scrimming against pro players, could be good enough to be in the league. Next up from Rio, he said the LA Thieves should have chosen Kleenex instead of Envoy, and this one actually had a few replies and 10 likes, which is actually pretty good amount on these replies. So it seems like people agree. Now, I think from the standpoint of just looking at maybe the talent or who had a better season in recent years, I obviously think most of us can agree Kleenex, especially last year, was better than Envoy. But I think when you look at what this team needs, I think Envoy 100% fits better than Kleenex. Hydra is a very aggressive, slaying SMG player. He's not going to sit in the hill. He's going to run at you. He's going to get behind. He's going to get a lot of kills. That's what Hydra does, right? He's just going to get in your face, make things mixy, but Hydra's going to get kills, right? That's what he's going to do. And Kleenex plays a similar role, right? Kleenex is also a fast-paced, in-your-face, trying to get kills. He'll definitely play more objective than Hydra would, but they play a pretty similar role when it comes to the SMG. Envoy, on the other hand, he's going to sit in the hill. He's going to carry bomb and search and destroy. He's going to hit routes. He's going to hit flanks. He's going to get spawns. Envoy is the dirty work player that I think fits perfectly with Hydra. So I definitely think I disagree with this take. I actually think that Envoy is much better fit for this team, for this LA Thieves team, to pair alongside Hydra than Kleenex. And especially if you look at the fact that Scrap wanted to bring Envoy to this team, because one, obviously he likes teaming with them, and two, he thinks he would be a great duo with Hydra. I think just goes to show you, if a guy like Scrap and these pro players think this duo is going to work, who are we really to disagree with them? Snake Maverick's CDL watch party is greater than Scump's. I mean, listen, you're the one who said it, not me. Zane here says his hot take is the Minnesota Rocker are going to be a top 4 team. Now, this one definitely going into the season, given the rumored roster right now of Nero, Estriel, Geo, and Paul X, does probably seem like a hot take. Given the way the league is going into Black Ops 6, right? We got a top 3 this year. It's not even a top 4 anymore. So really it is. The bottom 9 teams could be battling out for that 4th spot. And I don't think it's crazy to say the Minnesota Rocker could be that 4th best team at some point throughout the season, but I do think we're going to see that 4th best spot rotate around throughout the year. I don't think we're going to see one team strictly be the 4th team the entire year. Maybe by the end of the season, we'll see a team kind of solidify themselves as that 4th best team, but I think especially in the first half of the season, we're going to see a bunch of teams sort of be looked at as that power ranked 4th best team. And I honestly think the Minnesota Rocker, especially with it being a pretty young team, 2 players coming out of their rookie years in Estriel and Geo, if they take a step up, I really do think this Rocker team could potentially put themselves in top 4 conversations. Next up from Charlie, this one's definitely a hot take. He said, I think Boston are going to make a Sunday. Like I just said for that Minnesota Rocker one, it's not out of the realm of possibility for Boston to be looked at as a top 4 team at some point throughout the year. With it being a top 3 league, that means one team of the outside of top 3 is going to make Sunday every single weekend, which is definitely interesting, or every major, I should say. There aren't majors every weekend. I wish there were. But one team outside the top 3 is going to make Sunday at every major, and it's possible for Boston to be that team. Right now, looking at the rosters going into the year, I don't really feel comfortable backing the Boston team, but it is definitely possible, right? You got a full squad of players trying to prove themselves. The same team we saw at EWC that got a top 8. It's not completely impossible for Boston to make a Sunday, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see a different, bottom 9 team make Sunday at every single major. But for me, I guess going into the season, this is one I probably wouldn't put my money on. Here from Zent, this is the one you saw in the intro. FaZe Dynasty is greater than the OPTIC Dynasty. This one is one of the hottest takes I think that I've read so far as I've been scrolling through the replies. Now listen, everybody is entitled to their opinion, right? That's why I do these videos. That's my favorite thing about competitive COD and just competition in general, right? Like, everyone can have an opinion, but for me, this one is absolutely one I don't agree with. For me, like, I don't even think the FaZe Dynasty is a thing. No disrespect to those players, but they just, like, being first place in the standings and like maybe winning a major every year, I really think the Vanguard season puts the dent in the dynasty for me. You can't have an entire season where you don't win an event and still be considered a dynasty, in my opinion. I still think Optic and Complexity are the only two dynasties we've seen so far in COD history. Even if, and we'll play with the hypothetical, even if you think that FaZe is a dynasty, which is also tough because they've had so many different forts at this point, right? They've had Arcesies, they've had Slasher, now they have Draza. Even if you want to say the Core 3 or Atlanta FaZe, the whole CDL era is a dynasty, we'll play into that for now. I still think saying they're better than Optic is a bit crazy. Now, obviously, the competition now is probably at a higher level. There are less teams in the league, so you're playing the better teams more often. But at the same time, the Optic dynasty made top 3 every single event, basically, like FaZe does, but they won so many more grand finals than this FaZe team does. And I think strictly when you're looking at dynasties, which is in terms of how dominant a team is, winning grand finals, I think, is like the metric. And with the way Complexity and the way the Optic dynasty won grand finals, I think that's really the mark of who's the best dynasties. And I just think there's pretty much no world for me personally that I would put this Atlanta FaZe dynasty over Optic. Now we got a really spicy one here from Speedy that says LAT won't be top 3 next year. If you can't tell, this is a bit of a spicy one for me because I may or may not be a Thieves fan. Now, obviously, I'm going to be slightly biased in my answer here and say I disagree, right? Saying this current LA Thieves team, right, Hydra, Envoy, Scrap, and Ghosties, not going to be top 3 next year, I think is crazy, right? Anything is possible. Everything on paper looks great, and the teams actually play together, and things can change. I undoubtedly think this team is going to be top 3. I mean, you got to look. I think the biggest argument for me when it comes to this is look at LA Thieves last year, right? They got top 4 at Champs. They got top 2 at EWC, and their roster was Ghosty, Jodeci's, Nasty, and Kremp, right? Now you look at that roster, and you look at the new roster of Envoy, Scrap, Hydra, and Ghosty, right? Pretty much an upgrade in every single position other than Dan because he stayed on the team, but he might even get better this year. So to think that the LA Thieves team last year was competing, not necessarily beating, but competing with the top teams last season, to have upgrades in all 3 of the other positions, to have 2 of the potential top 3, top 4 players in the game in Scrap and Hydra, I think it's crazy to say they're not going to be top 3. Just like I think it'd be crazy to say that Optic and FaZe aren't going to be top 3. I really do believe, as boring as it might be, all 3 of those teams are probably going to be the top 3 teams week in, week out. Maybe we'll see a major where one of them flops and gets like a top 6 or a top 4 or something like that. But I think pretty much undoubtedly they're all going to make Sunday almost every single major, if not every single major, and they're probably going to be the top 3 every time. Next up, we got a spicy one that I'm sure the Optic fans are going to have a field day with in the comments. From Evan, he says Simp is top 3 all time. Now, this one is obviously up for debate, right? It depends how you rank players, what you value more. If you're one of the people in the camp of like rings over everything, then you maybe could argue it, right? I mean, there are 3 players with 3 rings right now, so you really, if that is your measurement, you couldn't put Simp top 3 because Karma, Clay, and Krim would have to be your top 3. But when you measure in the MVPs, the accolades, even at this point, the longevity for Simp, right? I mean, he's been playing for what, 6 years at this point at the pro level? When you add in all those things, if you have Simp in your top 3, I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. For me personally, just to give you my opinion on the take, which I guess is the whole point of this video, I don't have Simp top 3. I think I'd have him top 6 at this point. I'd probably have him 6 outside of the top 5. Simp undoubtedly could be top 3, if not top 1 by the end of his career. If he keeps playing as good as he does, if he gets more wins, especially if he gets a 3rd ring, and he plays for a few more seasons, that's 100% possible. But I do think at this moment in time, putting Simp over the likes of Krim, Karma, Scump, Clay, Formal, you could argue some of those, especially if you think the 2 rings just totally outweighs everything Scump and Formal did in their career, then I guess you could argue it like I said. But for me personally, I don't think Simp is top 3 just yet, but undoubtedly think he could end up being the GOAT when everything's said and done. Staying on the topic of top 3 all time, here from Raw Styles, Kenny will end his career being top 3 all time. Now, this is one I definitely can get behind. Kenny right now, if you ask most COD fans, probably after this past season broke into the top 10 of all time. Maybe if you don't really like Kenny, you have him in like your top 12, but I think for most people, he's probably already in the top 10. And obviously with Kenny already being such a great player, bringing so much to a team, now he's on Optic, a team that looks like they're going to be, you know, competitive every single year of COD. I really do think Kenny is the player that's probably going to continue to move up the all-time list. So having him eventually be top 3 is not out of the realm of possibility, especially if he gets a 3rd ring. I mean, same thing I just said for Simp. if Kenny gets a third ring or if Simp gets a third ring, those guys can both undoubtedly be top 3. But like I said, at the end of the day, it really comes down to how you value and weigh your rankings. If you value the competition now is so much harder and you think a win now is worth like 3 wins back in the day, then sure, these guys could undoubtedly be moving up the list way faster in your mind than maybe someone else's. But either way, I definitely agree. I do think Kenny can end up being top 3. This one is actually one of the spiciest ones I think that is going to be in this video. Aside from Cold War, Simp has never been better than Shotzzy since Shotzzy started playing COD. Now, this one actually got me thinking. Like, I read this one like 2 minutes ago, right, before I even said it on the video. And it really got me thinking, like, what do I actually think? Do I think Shotzzy has been better than Simp every year other than Cold War? So, I mean, let's look at it year by year, right? We go back to Modern Warfare 2019. That's when Shotzzy started playing COD. Obviously, that year's an anomaly with it being the first year of the CDL, new format. Everything was mostly online because of COVID. But Shotzzy won champs. He won the regular season MVP. Simp was basically the runner-up, though, when it came to regular season MVP. A lot of people, I think even Breaking Point, had Simp as #1 that year, despite Shotzzy being the league MVP, like awarded officially from the league. So in that case, in 2019, I'd probably give Shotzzy the slight edge, but I really think they're just about tied. Then we look at Cold War. Obviously, it's Simp. Simp was the best player in the game in Cold War. Some people argue a BZ. I think it was Simp, but either way, I don't think Shotzzy was really in that top conversation. Then we go to Vanguard, another year where I think it was really, really close. Looking at Breaking Point's ratings, they rated Shotzzy #4, and they rated Simp #5. But I think watching that year, I recall leaning a bit towards Shotzzy probably being better, but honestly, that could be another year we chalk up to a tie. Then we look at Modern Warfare 2, 2022, another year where honestly, they're really close. Breaking Point had Shotzzy #13, and they had Simp #10. This was another year where honestly, neither of them really stood out in my opinion. I mean, Shotzzy had his moments throughout the year, Simp had his moments, but aBeZy was MVP frontrunner for most of the season. So right there, I mean, that was aBeZy's year on that FaZe team, right? Simp definitely took a bit of a backseat, but that's another year that honestly, you could chalk up as a tie, but you could kind of give to either one. And then this past season, another year where obviously Simp won the MVP this time around. OPTIC fans and a lot of people think Shotzzy should have won it. Obviously, Shotzzy won champs, but it's another year where, in my opinion, the top 4 players could have been ranked in any order, and I wouldn't argue with you. If you had Simp 1, Scrap 1, Hydra 1, Shotzzy 1, I think any of that is totally fine as long as you had your reason for doing it. So this is another year where I do think you could chalk it up to a tie, but for me personally, when going through it like that, I think saying that Simp was only better than Shotzzy in Cold War might be a bit of a hot take that I don't agree with. It's definitely closer than I think people might have realized over the years, because we always talk about Simp as like GOAT contender and Shotzzy as like, you know, inconsistent superstar. But I think when you actually look at it year by year, it's actually much closer than we think. But I wouldn't say Shotzzy's undoubtedly better than Simp in all these years, like maybe this comment was saying. All right, last one here to round out the video here from Criminal Chris. He said, I like city-based franchising. Makes the league feel more professional and easier to get into if you've never watched an esport before. And this is what I do agree with, but obviously there's nuance about this. Something I've talked about a lot over the last couple years is I do agree. City-based franchising makes it easy for new fans that have never watched competitive COD or esports as a whole to get into the league. Plenty of people that watch my videos or have come into my streams and straight up told me like, I'm from Seattle and I root for the Seattle Surge for that reason. Or I'm from Carolina, North Carolina, South Carolina, and I root for the Carolina Royal Ravens for that reason. But I think strictly from that aspect, it helps people who don't know anything. If you were to, like, imagine that you were a new fan, right? You wanted to watch COD and you saw 100 Thieves, you saw OPTIC Gaming, you saw FaZe Clan. You had no idea what any of that meant, right? You're just sitting here like, what the hell is going on? How am I supposed to pick a favorite team? And picking a favorite team is one of the biggest ways for someone to get interested in anything that they watch. But now imagine you live in New York City and you hear there is a team called Cloud9 New York in Call of Duty, and you wanted to get into watching competitive COD. Obviously, for you, it'd be much easier to watch when you know there's a team you could root for that is representing the city you live in. So I definitely agree. I think it's easier for people to get into it, but obviously, sports and esports are not the same thing. Trying to compare them or make them, you know, make them the same thing, I think is it kind of goes against the whole point of esports. Esports is not meant to be traditional sports. I think some things from it can be transferred over to make the esport better. But I think as a whole, esports has a whole bunch of uniqueness that it needs to take advantage of. And I think one of those things is the orgs, right? I think for people who know about esports, they're much more inclined to watch 100 Thieves, to watch OPTIC Gaming, to watch Cloud9 than they are to watch OPTIC Texas or LA Thieves. But at the end of the day, I don't know how much it really matters. Like, I really don't know how many people actually don't watch the CDL just because of like the names of the teams you like competitive COD, you're going to watch it, I think, regardless of the names of the teams, especially because, like, it's not hard to tell that OPTIC Texas is an OPTIC Gaming team, or LA Thieves is a 100 Thieves team, or Atlanta FaZe is a FaZe Clan team. But then there's also the flip side of, like, I don't know how many G2 fans know that Minnesota Rocker is a G2 team. So there's many flip sides to this sort of thing, right? There's good and bad. There's pros and cons to everything. So this is one that I definitely agree with. I think it makes it easier for new fans to get into, but it probably holds back some, you know, fans that are already aware of the esport. But that's going to do it for the hot takes today. If you want to see another video like this, let me know in the comments. Drop a like. If we hit 70 likes on this video, I'll record another one in the near future. So let me know what you think. Make sure to sub to the channel for more CDL content. We're going to be going hard during Black Ops 6. With all that being said, hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.